Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome back to my Dune Awakening content. So I hope I can get through this video this time, because I've had to redo this video because I had a power outage a little bit ago. Got a severe storm in my area, so that's always fun. But anyway, today's video I want to talk to you about server structure. Now, the last live stream that we had that they released a few days ago on the 15th had a lot of information in there, but they also had this section on servers and server structure, and the group assembled to talk about it was Natasha, the senior PR manager, Joel, the chief creative officer, and Leo, lead game designer. So a little preemptive warning here, Joel is crazy and he kind of goes off the rails a little bit, but whatever. You can definitely tell why he is the chief creative officer, because he seems to be a very creative person for sure. He is nuts, man. Anyway, so I want to talk about this, but I think the best thing for us to do is let's go ahead and rewatch this little section where they talk about server structure, and let's wrap our heads around this, because folks, I'm telling you, this whole server structure thing is my #1 fear for this game. I think that the developers of Dune Awakening, yes, they know 10 million times more than me about how to design a game. That's what they do. That's their business. I get it. They've done it in the past with other games like Conan, which the servers weren't the greatest, but anyway, it's an experience. So I get it. I want you to understand that I'm not trying to sit here and act like I know everything. I do not, because I'm telling you, it has been a struggle to dig up this information so that I could try to speak intelligently about server structure, because this is something that they're just really not throwing out a lot of answers to key questions that the community has, you know, like, will I be able to do this, or will I be able to do that, or how long am I going to be in queue here? It's something that, yes, they did release this information right here, but there's a lot of questions that the community has, and if you go to look on the official Discord in the question sections, you will see over and over and over people asking the same questions about what's this going to be like, what's that going to be like as far as server structure. So they have a little bit of information to get out there to the community, and I wish they really would focus on this issue and talk more about it, because from everybody that I've talked to, when you try to wrap your head around the server structure, it just seems like they've made it way more difficult than it has to be. Oh my God. I think they're coming at this from a network administrator mindset and not really giving enough credence to how a gamer would come at this, because I think what they're kind of and you'll hear this in the interview, Natasha, the senior PR manager, kind of glosses over the fact that, oh, there's a queue, it'll be no big deal, people will be able to get on, blah blah blah. It doesn't work like that, and I don't know if she just has a lack of experience playing games where there's actually queues that you have to struggle through to get on, or when new content is released you can't even get on those servers, period, for days, and you're frustrated and you want to quit the game. I think what they're forgetting is to look at this with more of a gamer mentality, because when gamers try to play a game and gamers can't get connected to the game, guess what gamers do? Gamers have a short attention span, and if they can't play the game they want to play, if they can't play the game they want to play and that they have paid for, they'll leave and they will get a refund and they'll go play something else. So ultimately, that's not good for the game's health. To make the server structure so difficult that people can't figure out how in the world they're supposed to group up and play with their friends, can't figure out whether they're even going to get to be on a server at all. I mean, yes, release for a new game is always a very active time, and that's always a time when server load and balancing and lag and things like that are a struggle, but you have to have a good design to start with, and I'm just not thinking that this is a good design. But you know, like I said, I'm not a network engineer. I'm just a gamer, but I have played games for over 30 years in this kind of space, and I've done nothing but play on servers and stuff like that. So I get it, how hard it is to connect to some games. And when game companies make you have to jump through too many hoops to play with your friends, guess what? Those gamers leave and go play something else that makes it more friendly to be able to group up and have fun. Because in the end, it's all about fun, and if you can't get on to play, then you can't have no fun, period. In a nutshell, it doesn't matter about server load and balancing at that point. It's you just sunk your own game. But anyway, let's talk about server structure and let's hear what they have to say, and then I'm going to kind of try to interject what I've found out through all the research I've done and see if we can kind of make heads or tails of it. So here we go. Enjoy.
That someone made,
which we're having on the screen any second now, because we talk about server structure.
that was the wrong
That is
one.
not the one. That is the right
that's
one.
the right
Perfect.
one. Well
there we
done.
go. Again,
Champion.
it's a live stream. Well, with a live stream, maybe without some hiccups.
All right.
Anyway, please, Joel, talk to us about server structure, servers, worlds, all the good stuff.
All right, cool. I will talk to you about this, Natasha. So Dune Awakening has a very unique, somewhat different server structure to the type of games you'd expect. If you're a survival player, you're probably used to one map, one server. But Dune Awakening has kind of a larger server structure on the back end. So we have what we call worlds. Worlds are made up of multiple servers, which we call internally sietches. So often when you join a sietch, you'll see here in this infographic that Haga Basin has this big stack of sietches. So when you sign up, you'll choose your world, and then you'll join a sietch within that world. Each of those Haga Basin sietches contains maximum 40 players per map, but all of those maps add up to create the entire world. The deep desert, the social hubs like Harko Village and Arrakis, they are actually shared social spaces in the world. The deep desert being the big PvP area in the world. And of course, so we're talking about, we have this 5-day head start. I know people are concerned. The thing is, you'll be able to join worlds that we open during that head start. We will also open more worlds when the game launches, but you can also join a sietch in a world that isn't necessarily the same sietch as your friend, but you'll be able to go and visit your friend. You'll be able to do a lot of stuff with your friend. So it's kind of, you're not going to be locked out for the most part of any content when you join after the head start. Also, I would say get better friends and let them buy you the head start. That's another thing I think is a really good option.
That's the way to go.
No, you also said 40 players per max per server or siege. What happens if someone joins anyway? If there's
if more than 40 people try to join at one time, so it's concurrent users, so CCU, and that means that then they'll be put into a queue to wait to join. So we can have more characters on a server than 40. We can have, several hundred. But that means people play at different times of day when people join, so there will be a queuing system in place to allow people to wait in line to get into the servers, of course.
Right. And you briefly just mentioned it, visiting. So you don't actually have to be on the same, or you don't have to start necessarily in the same server. There are some caveats to it, but let's talk a little bit more about that. How does visiting a friend on another server work?
Well, the first and most important step is to get a friend. This is often achieved by going to a cafe or a movie theater and just striking up a conversation with a random stranger. Then once you have a friend and they are also into Dune Awakening, which is also a big moment. Oh, my mic. Sorry. I have tech support here because my mic sucks. Was I talking too loudly?
And also, it'd be good to have the visiting friends. We actually have a little video or an asset that shows that too, how you can actually visit a friend.
We're talking about how to make friends first.
Sorry, well, we can talk about make friends. How do you make friends?
He's enabled sexy mode now. So now I first of all, how I make friends is I talk to them in a voice like this.
Now we have it there.
Okay, so once you've made friends, and you can see friends automatically because they're added from your Steam list as well. So if you have them as a friend on Steam, they will show up in your friends list in the game automatically. Then you go to the friends page. You'd simply click them and say, I want to visit this friend. It will teleport you to the nearest trade post to that friend, because obviously teleporting directly to them would be exploitable in infinite amounts of ways. Once you're there, you can join up with your friend, do everything on that sietch with them, except for one specific thing, and that is build. You can't claim land. You can build on their base. you can be given ownership of their base and be able to build all the parts of their base, but you don't own the specific land claim. And that's just for database reasons. We need to make sure that we control how many people build in different locations. And then, of course, when you want to go home, you just push escape and choose return to home dimension, and it will take you back.
Right, and you can also do contracts and journey steps, like with your friends that way as well, that will kind of carry over when you go back to your home world.
Yeah,
as well.
all of the
Or home
content in the
server,
game is accessible with this visiting feature, so you can basically do everything. Everything that you could do in a group, you can do, on someone else's world. You can do it in your own world. So there is this cross-play feature for everyone. You'll be able to, work together. So I think people are concerned about I won't be able to meet my friends who started, but this shouldn't be a problem. You should be able to play with people, even if you're not in the same exact siege when you start playing.
Right. So we have talked about playing with your friends. Obviously, you can play solo, but then there's the usual things that you have in games, groups, guilds. Maybe Leo can talk a little bit about what kind of options are there to play with your friends besides visiting their server?
Yeah, so let's start with groups. So we saw that a bit earlier in the previous segments, right, with group combat. So groups are temporary social structures of up to 4 people. And they come with some benefits like seeing your group member status on the HUD. You see them as markers on the map.
Groups with benefits, huh?
Yeah.
Groups.
Love those. Love those.
The best
Convenient, right? So, and then you have standard features like chat connected to that as well. And yeah, makes it more convenient to game with your friends.
Wow, Leo, could you go deeper into chat?
Deeper into chat, yes. So this is a groundbreaking feature that we've done.
Okay, so sorry, I kind of let it go a little longer than I intended to. I had to run and grab a cup of coffee, sorry. But you've seen the discussion that they had about servers and that kind of thing. It is very difficult to understand, and there are a lot of questions that are still yet unanswered. Hang on. Sorry. There are a lot of questions that are still yet unanswered, and there may be mechanics that are key that we need to discover that haven't been talked about yet, but that stuff is going to be released really soon, because in a couple of weeks, I think, is my estimation, they've said that they're going to have a beta weekend, and that hopefully a lot more of us can get in game and be able to see how that stuff works, and we'll have a lot better estimation on how it's going to function, and maybe I can come back and revisit this video at that time if I've made a lot of big mistakes, but I think I've got this kind of figured out. The first thing I want to talk about when trying to explain this in more detail from what I've been able to understand from the digging I've been doing is I want to show you the server farm region map. And before I really go into this deep dive discussion on this, I want to just kind of throw this out there and let you know that no, I am not, or have I ever been part of the beta. I have not signed an NDA, so no. For those of you that are going to flame me, I am not breaking the NDA. So everything I'm about to tell you is from information that I have dug up on the official Discord that's been discussed openly. And if they didn't want it to be known, then they should have deleted the thread. So that's kind of how I'm coming at this. So this is where it all begins. In their last live stream, they showed us this server map. And what this is different server farms in different regions. A lot of games do this, pretty much every game does this, to group their servers in region locations that are close to you so that you can have the lowest available ping. And what that means is the time it takes for your packets of data to connect to their server and back so that you can interact with the game. Ping is a well-known thing. Gamers understand it. The lower the ping, the better connection you have. The higher the ping, the more lag and the worse of a time you have playing the game. So, if I live right here in the United States, my best option is probably going to be to join the central US server farm. That's where it all starts. If I live right here in South America, my best option is obviously the South American one. It wouldn't be Asia, because then my data's got to go this far and back rather than this far and back. So you get it. This is where the whole decision-making process of where and who you're going to play with starts. You have to choose a server map, and you are then tied to that server farm, which that server farm then creates the versions of the maps and the servers most people like to think of that they play on with their friends. If you have friends that play on the Asia server farm and you play on the Central US server farm, you will not be able to play together because you will be on Central US server maps and they will be on Asia server maps. Okay, you need to understand that. That's critical because a lot of guilds aren't thinking this far ahead and they're not telling their prospective members ahead of time, hey, we're going to base ourselves out of the Central US server farm because that's the best connection for all of our members. So if you're somebody from Asia, you may want to think about joining an Asian guild, unless you're just somebody that's like from a region like Australia and you are very tight with the people that you want to play with and you're going to choose to play to that server farm anyway, just because you want that experience together. You can do that. It just may not be an optimal connection for you. So that's the start of the process, the server map and the choice you have to make there and the choice your guild has to ultimately make, because everybody in the guild is going to have to be on the same one or you will not get to play together. Okay, we've got to get that right off the bat. Now what we got to do is we got to go back to the world map structure and we're at the world map level. There's many different levels to this whole process of how you're going to group with your friends and how you're going to make sure you can play together. Remember, the first step was choose the server farm. Now you're going to make a choice of a world map. If you can see, each one of these layers of these 4 different layers here represent a world. World 1 that has all this content on it. World 2 has its own separate content. World 3 has its own separate content, and so on. There is no definitive answer about how many worlds there will be on a server farm, but on a particular server farm, like Central US server farm, you will have individual worlds that you will have to choose from. So the next choice that you have to make, you choose a server farm, then you choose a world map. If everybody in your guild goes for world map 3 and you go to world map 1, guess what? Your Haga Basins, your Arrakis, your Harkos, your Deep Deserts are not the same. You will not be playing together because all of these world maps have their own individual populations of all these different types of content. So the second choice you have to make is make sure that you all get on the same world map. I'm going to use, for example, for the rest of this discussion that we're on world map 1 because it's on top and we can see it. So far we've chosen the Central United States server farm. We've then chose world 1 as a group. So now at this point we're all together. We go into world 1 and at that point then you have to choose a Haga Basin. As you can see, there are a stack of Haga Basins, and these are like representations of individual maps of the same content, the Haga Basin, but there are multiple per world. What this is going to do is it's going to help spread out the load among a world map. They're saying right now, and I desperately hope this changes in the future, they're saying right now that there can be 40 concurrent users, which means online at any one time, on each one of the versions of the Haga Basin. What is Haga Basin? Well, Haga Basin is a very big map that is where you do all of your PvE content pretty much. You do your questing there, you do your resource gathering there, you do a lot of the building options that you have there, and the Haga Basin that you choose when you start, you are from then on locked to that particular Haga Basin. Okay? It is important that you understand that when you want to play with players, Hopefully they're on the same server farm as you. They're on the same world map as you. It's not so critical that you guys then be on the exact same copy of the Haga Basin. Let's say I go to Haga Basin number 1, if that's how they're named. I think they're named sietches and a certain name for each one. But if I go to this one, and in this example I'm just going to refer to it as Haga Basin 1, and you go to this one, Haga Basin 4 or whatever, you are locked to that one as your home Haga Basin, and I am locked to this one, number 1, as my home Haga Basin. The only thing that really matters for is that is the map where you can actually claim land. You cannot claim land on anybody else's Haga Basin, even though you can travel to other Haga Basins to group with your friends. You cannot claim land on any other Haga Basin but the original one that you started your quest on, okay? Where your character lives. Now that's going to cause, this is going to be where the majority of the pain comes in, because for a new game release, these are going to be full. And they have said that if you choose this one, for example, and you are trying to log in and it is at 40 of 40 players, you will not automatically get into your map. You will go into a queue system and you will wait for somebody to log off so that you can have a spot to get in. With a 40-player concurrent user base, that really sucks, because from all my experience from MMOs and survival games from the past, this is not enough players to have as a concurrent user that then directs you to a queue, because these are going to be full. That only means 40 people per map are active in the game world at once, and even if they're not playing, they're going to AFK in their base, and they're going to use macros, or they're going to use other techniques to beat the inactivity timer so that they don't get kicked. And saying that they're going to be in their base and, oh, they're going to starve to death, or they're going to die of heat stroke, and then they're going to get disconnected. Maybe, but for the majority of them that are used to this whole setup, they're going to come and check back every 30 minutes or whatever it takes and take a drink, eat a bite, and they'll be good to go again. They'll lay in a bed, they'll get that shelter buff in their base, and they won't die. So this is the part that they're glossing over, and this is the part that's going to be one of the two major pain points from what I see. Now, they did say that each map is not just limited to only 40 people can live on that map. They can have hundreds of people that call that map home, but only 40 can be on concurrently at the same time. So if you're trying to get on your map and it's 40 of 40, you wait. Okay? Now that brings to mind, and that's how the complete server structure works as far as how you make sure that you can be with your friends. It's not, you need to be on the same server farm, you need to be on the same world map, and if you want to actually be able to physically have your land claims in the Haga Basin map together or close by, or try to build a little guild city with multiple of your people building in the same zone that you can actually physically see when you're on, you have to join the same one. If that's not that important to you, then your guild members can join any of these Haga Basins on the same world map and on the same server farm, and then you can transport back and forth to other players in their versions of their Haga Basin. Whenever you bring up the guild member list, the people that you are friends with in Steam will automatically show up in your guild list, they have said, and I'm sure you can probably make friends in game too when you meet people that are cool, add them to your friends list type of mechanic, so I'm sure that's a thing. But whenever you pick that person's name, you will have the option to travel to that person's Haga Basin, and then you can then warp there, you show up on their map, and it sends you to meet them at one of these two social hubs right here. Harco Village is the Harkonnen themed, and Arrakis is the Atreides themed social hubs. That's where you meet your friends whenever you go to their version of Haga Basin. And I guess that is so that if the Haga Basin is full, you don't have to sit in a queue. You can just go here, because this is a shared space among all the people that play on all the Haga Basins for this world map. This is a shared space where you can all go. Just think of it as a social hub to where everybody's running around, playing on the exchange, dancing on tabletops, you know, the whole gathering point theme of an MMO. We're all familiar with that, with World of Warcraft and things like that, with the big cities and the bustling cities where people are always jumping off roofs and standing on walls and dancing in the taverns and, you know, just meeting people. That's what these are, the social hubs, and they're a shared space for everybody on this world map that are all part of in all of these Haga Basins. Then you have this whole other animal that is the deep desert, okay? This is a huge map that has been likened to the size of New York City if you were actually to try to compare it to something in real world, and that's a huge space. To where everybody that's on this world, World 1, and the same server farm can go to the deep desert to participate in PvP. They have like 9 different servers that are stitched together in this area to where you can cross over each of the individual server boundaries and appear, you know, to try to help balance out the load so that they can have hundreds of players at a time engaging in combat all across this map, and it hopefully will work seamlessly. If you've ever played a game like Atlas, you remember that survival game had multiple servers that were stitched together, and whenever you went to cross a server boundary on your ship, whenever you were sailing on the ocean, you would hit that server boundary and it would take a couple seconds, and then boom, you would pop through to the other server that was stitched together. So think of this as like a little 9 server grid pattern that has open boundaries that you can transfer back and forth, hopefully seamlessly. But that's where all the PvP content takes place. Haga Basin is like 98% PvE. That's where all your PvE content takes place. This is the area where you can claim your land claims and build your bases. You can also build in the deep desert, but it, you know, gets wiped once a week, so probably not the best choice. But Haga Basin is like 98% PvE. There are specific little shipwreck area instances that have PvP in these zones, but it will let you know when you're about to cross over so that you can make the decision on whether you want to or not. But that's kind of what the server structure is about. Now, what this stuff is right here with the question marks, I don't know, because I never really heard anybody say anything, but maybe these are just points of interest that you go to do like a scientific laboratory PvE, or I don't know what these are, honestly. Maybe this is spots for future expansion, but you can see these little ornithopters flying between all these different regions, and how you transfer to these different areas is just that. So whenever you have a Haga Basin that is your home, you then begin the process of doing PvE content to collect resources, store those resources in your base, learn how to craft all the components you need, and then start to build like sand bikes so that you can travel around the world of your Haga Basin map and start to go different places and avoid the sandworms and get the more resources so that you can eventually, and they're saying it could take around 70-ish hours of gameplay for the average gamer, which is crazy, but I like it though. I'm just going to say I like a challenge. They said it takes about 70-ish hours for the average gamer to be able to collect the materials and the components and construct their first ornithopter. The ornithopter is a flying vehicle that will give you then the freedom to escape your Haga Basin and go to these different areas on your own. Yes, you will always have the ability to travel to your friends and meet them in a social hub. And when you do that, you will have the ability to then go to their Haga Basin and participate in PvE content with them. do quests, run around their Haga Basin map, gather resources, get loot and all that kind of stuff. And then when you're done questing or hanging out with them or playing in their base, then you click on your options and say, I want to return home. At that point, you then go from theirs back to yours. And one of the things that I have personally been trying to figure out, I've been asking the question over and over on the Discord, is can your loot that you've gathered on your friend's Haga Basin then go back home with you? I think the answer is yes, because that would be dumb if you couldn't, because then if you couldn't get any loot and you couldn't bring it back with you, guess what? Nobody would leave their Haga Basin, because there's no point. If you can't get your loot and bring it back with you, there's no point other than just hanging out with your friends. You wouldn't do it. The impetus to do it would not be there for you, because the reward that you could get and then bring home to your collection, add to your coffers, increase your personal wealth would not be there. So now that leads to the second pain point, and I think we've kind of went over just about everything about as far as how we kind of think they work. Understand that this could change later. They could change this based on player feedback, and I'm hoping they change this right here, the amount of concurrent users per Haga Basin, because that is ridiculously low. The map is huge, so there's no reason why there can't be 100 player concurrent, and that would greatly help. That would allow you to actually play and not sit in a queue for hours every day, because I'm telling you, if gamers have to sit in a queue and they can't play their game, they're just going to refund it and they're going to go play something else. So developers, please take note and please listen to the player base. We're telling you, we're thinking about this like gamers. Some of us have been doing it for 30 plus years. We know what we're talking about. I hope you listen. Now, this brings us to the second pain point that is being discussed fervently on the Discord, and none of the developers are willing to touch this one. So it kind of makes me a little worried about this situation, and that is, let's say that I'm on a Haga Basin, right? And I decide I want to travel to my friend's Haga Basin number 4 so that I can be with them and adventure and stuff, because we're not on the same one, so we can't physically see each other until we travel to each other. It takes you to the social hub automatically, and I think that's set up, like I said previously, that if their Haga Basin is capped, you go to the social hub to meet them. Now what? Now what do you do? Do you automatically get thrown in a queue until their Haga Basin has a free spot to allow you to then go to their Haga Basin so that you can do content with them? If that's the case, oh my God. That's just one more layer of where players have to hurry up and wait. If you've ever been in the military, you understand the phrase hurry up and wait, because that's all you ever do in the military. You hurry up and get somewhere, and then you have to sit there and wait on the wheels of government to process you, and it takes hours. That is what I'm hoping is not going to happen here. If you travel to a friend and you appear in this social hub of Arrakis on their Haga Basin world map server, and then you want to go to their Haga Basin so that you can interact and do content together, if you have to hit a queue at this point, you're going to be pissed, because you already have to queue to get on your own damn Haga Basin. Now if you have to go to their Haga Basin and hit a queue, you're going to be mad. And it's just one more hurdle that keeps people from being able to play together. Now, I will say about that whole situation, I have not been able to get clarity on whether that's a thing or not, and I have noticed a lot of people asking that same question, and we're not getting any interaction from the development team on that, so that leads me to fear that that may be the situation. And if that is, it's going to be bad, because then nobody will want to leave their own Haga Basin, honestly, because they're not going to want to sit in queues all day long. That's going to force people to try harder to get on the same version of Haga Basin together so that they don't have to deal with that traveling mechanic, okay? So what's that going to do? That's going to make the versions of Haga Basin even that more busy, which causes that much more queue, which causes that much more frustration. What big guilds are going to try to do is they're going to try to get their own version of a Haga Basin so that basically only their people can get on and off. That's going to be frustrating, especially if you're that guy that gets on a Haga Basin and you don't really know how to make a good choice at launch because you can't really tell. Everything's busy, but you get unlucky enough to get on a Haga Basin where a big guild is called home. You may be screwed, and you may have to start over and create a new character because they've said that you will not at this time be able to transfer. Once you make a choice, you're locked into that choice. Yes, you can go visit your friends, but you cannot make number 1 your home and then turn around and decide later you want to play on number 4 and make that your home. You will then at that point, from what we understand, have to delete your character and start over, or create a new character on whatever server farm, whatever world map, and then choose the proper Haga Basin. I'm imagining that a lot of people are going to be doing that because they're going to realize after they get into the game that crap, I can't play with my friends. So now I'm going to have to abandon the head start that I had and go to a new server where I can actually join up with them easier without having to deal with this queue mechanic back and forth. So yeah, that's going to be something that's still to be seen, but I hope you've enjoyed this discussion. I hope I've got this sort of right, even though I don't like how it is. I hope that the developers will rethink this whole process because honestly, this is just more confusing than it has to be. I'm hoping that they're padding their server concurrent user count with some backend so that they can be able to expand it in the future if they see they need to. And I hope that they consider making this 100 concurrent users rather than 40, because if we're going to be forced to deal with this whole server setup how it is, then we need better than this. This is going to be the choke point right here. This is going to be the point that's the choke point that really kills everything. And if they don't get this part right, it's going to cause them to lose players in droves. Only the Dune lore nerds and the really hardcorest of the hardcore MMO players that love the game are going to stick around. All the casuals and all the people that make up the main bulk of your player base, they're not going to put up with this. They're going to leave, they're going to refund, and they're going to go play something they can play. So, I hope you've liked this content. If you did, please think about subscribing and ticking that like notification. It really helps my content get out there and reach a bigger player base. I'm trying to grow, so all your help would greatly be appreciated. If you know something that I have said here that is wrong, I would really appreciate it if you would share your thoughts in the comment section and help me understand it better, because it is my fear that through my inability to understand that I may have directed people wrongly. But I have done a lot of research and I've tried to be diligent about this and come up with everything that I could find so that I could make the most informed content I could. But if you know something is wrong that I've said and you know better and you would like to correct me on it, please don't be afraid to do so, because I'm not that person that can't handle a little criticism. As long as it's constructive criticism that helps us be better, I'm all for it. But by all means, do not break your NDA. If you are part of the beta and you know something but you know it's under NDA, then just hang on to that and don't worry about sharing it right now. We'll figure it out in the long run, but I want you to do it in a manner that does not get you banned, please. So, thank you for watching my content. I really appreciate you being here today. I know you had a million things you would be doing on a weekend, but you chose to spend it with me, and I really, really appreciate it. Look in the description of my video for a link to my Discord, and you can join where we talk about Dune Awakening and where my guild is housed. And if you're interested in joining us, you can read our charter that I've written up and see if we have the design direction that you're interested in for the play experience that you'd like to have. I'd like to be able to talk to you about that. So thank you for watching my content. I'll see you in another video about Dune Awakening coming soon. Have a good day. Peace.